Good morning and welcome to the May 2016 installment of Breakaway Funding's webinar series. This month we bring you How to Build a Fearless Brand. We are delighted you have joined us. This is Kim Castiglionis, the founder and managing partner of Breakaway Funding and your host this morning. As many of you know, Breakaway Funding was created as a direct result of a two-pronged problem I encountered as the CEO of Circle Bank, and a problem that continues to exist today. First, lack of access to capital to fund small business, and second, community banks struggle to lend. The solution? Leverage technology via a fully integrated crowdfunding platform to match individual investors with businesses requiring capital to strengthen their balance sheets and position those companies for further funding by traditional lending institutions. As an aside, today you have an opportunity to help change small business access to capital by signing our petition to the California legislators to pass California crowdfunding laws, and I'll share more about that at the end of our presentation. We call this collaborative solution the Community Capital Marketplace. It is the engagement of all members of our local economies, investors, business owners, community financial institutions, working in concert to ensure capital is made available to propel innovation, job creation, and provide opportunities for all investors, accredited and non-accredited. We are here to help companies prepare for a market, execute their capital raise, and assist them in managing their crowd thereafter. We provide the data and financial analysis tools to help investors make informed investment decisions, and monthly educational webinars to help round out a robust economic marketplace. In that regard, we are pleased to have with us an expert in the world of branding and what makes a brand notable, and we will hear from him momentarily. To help set your expectation this morning, here is our agenda. I will begin with a few opening remarks, followed by our presenter. We'll spend a little time to answer questions. To ask a question, please use the comment box at the lower right-hand side of your screen. If we are unable to get to your questions this morning, please feel free to reach out to our presenter post-event. We will close with some wrap-up thoughts and provide you a preview of our next several exciting webinar topics. So let's begin. Want to increase sales? Currently seeking investment capital? If so, having a notable brand could be the difference between attracting your target customers or investors or waiting an eternity for fake to kick in. Branding goes way beyond a logo or website. When you think about your brand, we are really referring to the entire customer experience, how your customer is perceived in the marketplace. Are you different, or are you a me too? To help us understand what, why, and how to get a brand with a difference is Robert Friedman, founder of Fearless Branding. Robert works with service firms and consultants to position them optimally in their market so they can sell and market more effectively. Their work enables service businesses to identify, understand, and attract their ideal clients. Brand Vision, their core offer, is a blend of strategy and market research. It helps businesses strengthen their market position and sell and market more effectively. Through Fearless Branding, he created brand identities, including names, logos, and taglines, developed website, and writes foundational content such as white papers and case studies. Robert has worked on new product development and market research for the New York advertising agency DMB&B, as well as others. He was the brand manager for the $400 million frozen food brand Budget Gourmet at Kraft. He had an epiphany while working on coffee made at Nestle, which he will share with us in a moment. He currently works with service firms and consultants in high-touch service business, and he is a graduate of Vassar College in New York. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Kim, and thank you so much for having me. So I'd like to begin today's presentation, How to Build a Fearless Brand, by asking a question. And that question is, what makes sales and marketing work? And for those of you who are looking for capital or looking for funding, I'm definitely including pitching as a way, as part of selling. You are definitely selling. So by work, I mean produce results. All of us put our messages into the world to make something happen. We want our audience to take action. But the problem is that much of the sales and marketing we do doesn't actually produce the results we want. We take the actions, but it doesn't lead to attracting our ideal clients or closing deals. So why is that? And more importantly, what can we do to make your marketing more effective, whether it be your website, a lead generation campaign, or a pitch? The short answer to the question is it all starts with your brand, and in particular, what I call a fearless brand. Your brand affects everything. Everything about how people perceive you is driven by your brand. So this webinar will define what a fearless brand is, why it is so powerful, and how you get one. So briefly, but before we talk more about what a brand is, let's talk about what a brand is not, because there are very common misconceptions. So a brand is not your name. A brand is not your package. It's not your logo. It's not your tagline. It's not your ad campaign, and it's not even your product itself. All of those things should reflect your brand, but in and of themselves, they are not your brand. So here's what I really mean by brand. Your brand is a distillation. It is the essence of your competitive advantage. It defines and expresses your unique value. Another way to think about it, your brand is why you are chosen. So there's this moment for everyone who generates revenue through deals. You are in front of a prospect or an investor, and you make money only when they say yes. I call it the moment of truth. There's a person, or maybe it's a whole team on the other side of the table, and they are asking, why should we choose you? Why not one of your competitors? So when you're in that situation, you have got to differentiate your brand. If you can't differentiate yourself, why would anybody invest in you? Investors want to invest in businesses that are fearless. No one wants to invest in a me too. The more powerfully you can express your unique value, your competitive advantage, the easier it becomes for your ideal customers or investors to choose you. So I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine a world in which it's really easy for you to express your unique value. When you are faced with that moment of truth, you nail it. That's what fearless branding is all about. I want you to take a look at this logo. We all know what this logo is. Now, I want you to take a look at this painting. So this is a painting of the Sistine, it's on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome by Michelangelo. You see God, he's reaching down and he has created the world, and now he's creating Adam. Now, take a look at this painting. There, you see Adam, he's fully formed, he's with Eve, they're in the Garden of Eden. She is about to grab an apple and take a bite out of it. So now let's go back to our logo. This apple, with a bite taken out of it, is not just an apple. It is a very specific apple. When we look at that apple, we don't have to see the whole Sistine Chapel to understand what it means. We already know the story. It's from the Bible. It's from the book of Genesis, and we call that our creation myth. So I want you to keep that concept, that word, creation, create, in mind as we continue our conversation. So here's what I want you to take away. You've got a logo for a very recognizable brand, and in fact, it is the most valuable brand on the planet right now, and it comes from the Bible. So do you think about the Bible when you pick up your iPhone or when you use a Mac? You know, I'm an Apple user, and I don't. So then why am I telling you this? Why does any of this matter? It matters because Apple became the most valuable brand on the planet by using the branding strategy that I am sharing with you today. Many entrepreneurs don't understand it, and it's a powerful tool that you can use, so it's worth exploring and understanding. So let's look at another example. So has anybody been to Paris? So if you're at the Louvre Museum, you'll walk up the stairs and you see this sculpture at the main entrance. So we're going to make this interactive now for a minute. First three people who get the answer right get a $10 coffee card from Breakaway Funding. So for a prize, what is the name of this sculpture? I'm going to give you a quick hint if anybody doesn't know. It is the same name as a very famous brand. Anybody? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what it is, and we'll see if you're surprised. We actually did get from Ed and Andy a couple of correct answers, which is Nike. All right, so this sculpture is called the Nike of Samothrace. And Nike was the winged goddess of victory. Her job was to fly around the battlefield and reward victors with glory and fame. That was her job in Greek mythology. So now I want you to take a look at this logo. Do you see the graphic of what we call the swoosh? So now you know where the swoosh comes from. It's not just an abstract design. It actually means something. It means victory. So that's why the tagline, "Just do it," is so brilliant. It's one of the greatest expressions of a brand that has ever been developed. And I think it works so well because Nike is the Greek goddess of victory. Just do it means victory, winning. So Nike shows athletes in its ads because so many of us are inspired by great athletes like Michael Jordan. But here's the thing, just do it is bigger than athletics. It means show up for yourself. It means win. You win, whatever winning means in your life. And that meaning is inspirational to so many people. And it's this brilliant idea of winning that has made Nike such a huge brand. So just like Apple references the Bible, Nike came from Greek mythology. So we're starting to see a pattern here. Both of these brands are tapping into something very important in the human experience. They tell simple stories, and we understand what they are. We get what their bigger meaning is. We intuitively understand, therefore, that these brands are not just about their products. So I wanted to give you these tastes to make a point. And the point I want to make is that your brand can be as powerful as you want it to be. So granted, these examples are from big consumer brands that have sales and marketing budgets that are very large in the billions of dollars. But the point I want to make is that the strategic thinking is still the same. Whether you've got a B2B or professional services firm, or you're an entrepreneur looking for capital or financing, you can learn best practices from these cream of the crop consumer brands. So why do these brands work so well? That's the question I asked when I started Fearless Branding. I felt that if I could figure out what made these brands great, then I could apply that secret sauce to my clients' brands. So I'd like to tell you my own creation myth, how Fearless Branding was started, and why I'm so passionate about doing what I do. I started my career in advertising working for big New York advertising agencies, and then I became a brand manager working for large consumer packaged foods companies like Kraft. So flash forward, 2001, I was living in LA. I was working at Nestle on Coffee Mate. So one Saturday, I was taking my favorite hike in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I was miserable. I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Coffee Mate is artificial crap. And I didn't want to use my talent and my life to sell more boxes of artificial powder. So what was I supposed to do instead? Maybe I should have been a psychologist. But then I started thinking about some of the great brands that we're talking about today, and I thought I may be working on Coffee Mate, but someone else is working on Apple. The guy down the hall is working on Carnation Instant Breakfast, but somebody else is working on Nike. And then I had this insight. Not all brands were just trying to push more crap onto people. There were some brands that were not only making products that were excellent, but were providing something more. And that more was a meaningful experience. So I asked the questions, what are they doing? How are they doing it? What makes it all work? I also wondered, sometimes when I talk about the brands like Apple and Nike, people say, oh yeah, they're so cool. But was it just that they were cool, or they had some kind of magic that you had to look into? Or is it something that other brands can actually emulate in a systematic way? So by asking these questions, I reverse engineered what made these brands so effective and so successful. And so in my reverse engineering, I found three things. Number one, all of these brands are built on the foundation of a single idea. They stand for something, just one thing. It's clear, it's meaningful, it's inspirational. These brands are not just about the products they sell. They deliver a meaningful experience, and they are telling clear and simple stories that we understand. And for their ideal customers, these stories are very, very relevant. Number two, these brands focus on a clearly defined target market, typically a segment of a broader market. They don't try to be all things to all people. Number three, they're unmistakable. They're differentiated. You don't confuse them for any other brand in their category, and frankly, you don't confuse them for any other brand anywhere. So this differentiation happens at multiple levels. And because differentiation is so important, I want to give you a formula that you can use to evaluate your own business, whether your business is differentiated where it needs to be. So I call this formula for differentiation a fearless brand idea, and it has three parts to it. So the levels of differentiation are, number one, emotional. That's what we've been talking about today, this meaningful idea that makes the emotional connection. Number two is functional. So that means you actually have to do something different than your competitors, your product or your method. Something you do has to be different. And finally, number three, aesthetic. That means you look, sound, and feel different from your competitors. What images are you using? What language are you using? So I want to do another quick exercise. What's this brand? I'll give it one more second. So this is, as many of you probably know, okay, so I definitely got a couple of right answers from Alay and Ann. This is Tiffany. So how do we know? So a lot of times when I'm doing this presentation live, I hear, oh, it's that box, or, oh, and I'm actually hearing everybody got it. So it's that box or that color blue. It's so unmistakable. This is the kind of differentiation that companies jump to when they work on their brand. So it's a great thing to have a brand identity that is as recognizable as Tiffany. But the point that I want to make is that this is only one level of differentiation. So this level is called aesthetic differentiation. Now I want you to take a look at what's actually going on in the photograph, aside from the box. Just look at what's happening. What's that situation? Then I want you to look at this one. This might be right after. Then I want you to look at this one. And I want to just point out, there's an idea here. Do you see that it's more than just a box and a color? They're communicating something. And what they're communicating is this idea of love. And so Tiffany, as an important part of its brand, has tapped into the desire to give and receive love. It's very primal. So you may not quite think about it that systematically. If you're the one who's giving that engagement ring, the recipient sees that box, she gets so excited, but that's what's driving the feeling. And so the point that I want to make around telling the story is that there is a reason that the Tiffany customer is willing to pay more, to pay a substantial premium price. And that price premium is not just about the quality of the actual jewelry or whatever the object is. So one last level of differentiation, and I call this functional differentiation. I love this ad. And I came across it, and it just explains my point so perfectly. So did anybody know that Tiffany actually they introduced the engagement ring? So the ad talks about the six-prong setting and how it lifts the diamond to the light. So what's interesting is that Tiffany has created this innovative function, and that function connects to an emotion. So everything is connected. The emotional idea, the product, and the aesthetics. They all reinforce each other. So what I want you to take away from this conversation is that having a fearless brand idea is a strategic advantage. We're not paying more for Tiffany just because there's the box. The box is cardboard. The box is a powerful symbol. It symbolizes love. So products can be copied. Features and functions can be copied. But when you create a holistic experience at these three levels, you're creating something that is not substitutable. And I do want to make the point, this is equally true for a service, it's equally true for a technology. It's not just about a physical product like jewelry. So it's a virtuous cycle. A big idea, that's what leads to an emotional connection. And that emotional connection is what leads to customer loyalty, because it's the emotional experience that's not available from the competition, which is another way of saying it's unique, it's not a commodity. So basic economics, that combination of scarcity and customer loyalty leads to willingness to pay more, which is premium pricing, leads to profitability, creates financial success. So it's all logical economics. But what they don't teach you in econ is how you actually create the meaning that leads to the value. So now that we've used the Fearless Branding Framework to look at Apple and Nike and Tiffany, I just want to do one more quick exercise and ask a question. So I want you to take this idea of create or creation out of Apple, take winning out of Nike, take love out of Tiffany. And I want you to imagine what would happen to the market cap of these companies if you take their core ideas away. So I would argue that those businesses, instead of being valuable brands, that we know their name, that they just become commodity, and the result is that you lose billions of dollars of market cap. So there's one more tool that I want to give you, and it's a model that I use to create a brand strategy, and it's based on 5 simple questions. So here are the questions. First is, who are you? Second, what do you do? Who do you do it for? What do they want? Or in some cases, the question becomes, what do they need? And finally, what do they get? Those questions are so basic, but most businesses answer these questions badly. So by badly, I mean generically. So today we've been talking about differentiation. Those questions are the foundation of your business. They are the foundation of your value proposition. So if you answer those questions generically, you are going to end up with a Me Too brand. We don't want that. So if you answer them precisely, though, then you can create strategic advantage for your business. So let's dig into the questions one by one. The first question is, who are you? So first thing to say is most businesses don't even answer this question at all. If you ask somebody, who are you, they often start by talking about what they do, and that is a missed opportunity. So I'm going to tell you a quick little story. There's this great moment in business history. Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 1997. Apple was nearing bankruptcy. The Apple board didn't want to do it, but they had no choice, so they called Steve Jobs, who was a notorious pain in the neck. They called him back because they needed him to save the business. So the first thing he did when he returned to Apple was to focus on the brand. So I often play a video that captures this moment, and you can find it if you Google Steve Jobs oldie but goodie. But in the meantime, I'm going to just tell you what he said in the interest of time. And I tell the story because in just a few sentences, Steve Jobs captures the essence of marketing. So here's what he said. He starts by saying, marketing is about values. It's a complicated and noisy world, and we're not going to get a chance for people to remember much about us. So we have to be very clear with what we want them to know about us. So the way to build the Apple brand is not to talk about speeds and feeds. It's not to talk about why we're better than Windows. Our customers want to know, who is Apple? What do we stand for? Where do we fit in this world? We don't just make boxes for people to get their job done, even though we do that better than just about anybody. Apple is about something more. So our core value is that we believe that people with passion can change the world for the better. So it's at this moment that Steve Jobs goes on to show the Think Different campaign. And this campaign, it's like 20 years ago, has defined Apple in many ways to this day. So this is obviously Nelson Mandela. He also shows Martin Luther King and Maria Callas and Gandhi and Einstein. These are all people who changed the world for the better. To distill it down even further, these are the creators. So what's interesting is that today, Apple isn't talking about famous people. Today they're talking about you. So if you drive down the 101 or you open just about any magazine, you will see this campaign, shot on iPhone 6. And so what this is communicating is that you are the creator. If you're in Apple's target market, you get to be the creator. And so it's a brilliant example of how Apple, as this brand that's embodying creation and creativity, is giving it to you. They're giving you a feeling that you want more of. And that is what a great brand does. So I love this example because it captures what marketing is all about. So if you focus, or really good marketing is all about, if you focus on speeds and feeds, not your product features, or if you focus just on your product features, you will not create an enduring brand, and you will not create a valuable brand. Features and benefits can be copied, but who you are cannot be copied. And the way to build a great brand is to examine your values. Then you use those values when you tell your customers who you are. So, do you think that Steve Jobs has it right? Ask yourselves, who are you? What do you value? What do you stand for? Where do you fit? And an important question is, what do you believe that your competitors don't? So if you were wondering, this is a great question, who are you? But how do I answer it in such a brilliant way, the way Apple, Nike, and Tiffany are doing it? I'm going to share one more tool. And this tool is called archetype. So archetype is a word that was developed by one of the great psychologists named Carl Jung. And Jung believed in something called the collective unconscious. And basically what collective unconscious is about is that we as humans know things inherently, intuitively, without having to be told or taught what those things are. And there are these characters that populate the collective unconscious and embody a certain essence. And we call these things archetypes. Archetypes have primal energies that we just get. So the best way to explain it further is to give you some examples. So for example, the holy man, the warrior, the caregiver, the wizard, the genius, the healer. Okay, who's confused? It's a rhetorical question because nobody's confused because it's not confusing. It's quick, it's clear. So the thing about archetypes is they stand for one thing. And they tap into feelings and desires that we have as human beings. They're timeless, they're universal. And they tell us stories that we already know. So now I'm going to switch gears. We're going to move away for now from these big global brands that everybody knows. And I'm going to give you some examples of fearless branding clients that I've worked with in the last couple of years to show you that this is not just available to those big global brands. So here we go. Who can tell me what this story is meant to represent? What this picture is representing? Anybody? Okay, so Jordan got it. So this picture represents the story of the emperor has no clothes. So everybody, you can see, there's an emperor who is bamboozled. He stopped knowing the truth, except for one little boy who in some way was naive, but in other ways was very brave. And he was willing to tell the truth and say, dude, you're naked. So I'm telling you this story because I've got a client. Her name is Linda Galindo. She is an accountability consultant. She goes into organizations that want to create a culture of accountability. So the CEO will say something like, I want all my people to be more accountable. I want people to do what they say they're going to do and be accountable for their results. So my client, Linda, will be in a boardroom and people are nodding their heads and it's all fine until she asks, well, why does this culture not have accountability? So people on the management team will start saying things like, wow, the CEO is asking us to do all this stuff, but it's not reasonable. We're trying to tell him the truth, but he won't listen. So now you see the parallels. The emperor is a guy who won't listen to the truth. My client is the archetype of the little boy. So she's the one who's going to go back to the CEO that everybody is afraid to confront and say, dude, you're naked. You're the one who needs to start being more accountable. I'm hearing actually that you are not accountable to the truth right now. She is unafraid to speak truth to power. So we created a brand that was all about this idea of truth. And we express it using very simple language, the straight truth. It's based on a simple story that everyone knows, and it has resonated deeply. She's growing her business significantly, and she's doing really well by delivering a meaningful experience. And one last thing I'll point out about this is that when we developed this brand, and I thought, man, the straight truth, I was so surprised that nobody else had registered that and was using it. And so that's one of the things that I'm often looking for, is this example that's such a clear, easy to understand statement that you think, oh, tons of people are already using it, but they're not. And when you can find something like that, you're golden. So the next question is, what do you do? So going back to archetype, every archetype has a clear purpose. It wants something. It's like going on a quest. You have a mission. You're going for it. Like the knight in the Middle Ages who went off in search of the Holy Grail. I seek the Grail. He went on a journey to find this chalice that Jesus had drunk from, because that was the most important thing in the world to him. So what's the most important thing in the world to you when it comes to your business and your brand? So when you have a purpose, the thing is you have to take action. And then those actions, based on your mission, based on what you truly value, define who you are. So how do you do what you do? And how do you live who you are? So let's talk about another fearless branding client. The company is called ClickMail. You can see it at clickmail.com. They're in the email marketing space. They are value-added resellers of enterprise-level email marketing software. So ClickMail's problem when they came to me was that they had lost their competitive advantage. They were early players in the email marketing space, and they were perceived as experts. But then they started getting squeezed. So the software platforms that they were reselling were on one side, full-service digital agencies were on the other. And because they couldn't communicate to their customers, why us? Where's our value? Sales were stalled, and they really needed a breakthrough. And one last thing that's really important, the CEO knew that they needed to work on their brand as opposed to, let's say, just more sales, because they were doing the sales and marketing activities, but they weren't working. So by interviewing stakeholders inside and outside the organization, like the sales team and clients, I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. The CTO is a genius. So we found our archetype. So that's where our key message, make your email smarter, comes from. But an archetype is only valid if its actions are in line with its mission. So ClickMail had been communicating to customers that the key to success was choosing the right software. So if you look, we're answering this question, what is smarter email, in 3 ways: a powerful platform, proper customization, actionable analytics. So they had always focused their message on a powerful platform, and it's right, but it's only the beginning. And that's what our branding work showed, is that they were just at the tip of the iceberg. So the real key to success was in what the CTO called proper customization of the email marketing. And that was the heavy-duty IT consulting to make the platform support the email marketers' objectives and then integrate it with all of their clients' other systems. It was much higher value work. Not every client needed it, but those that needed it valued it highly, and it made ClickMail's relationships with those clients sticky and much more profitable. So ClickMail is now able to make the connection and explain their value between their IT-focused genius work and creating more successful email marketing programs for their clients. In other words, helping them make more money. So this fearless brand helped ClickMail to find that relevant competitive advantage and get out of their sales rep. So the third question, who do you do it for? It's so important because it means defining your target market precisely. So when you know exactly who the right customers or investors are, selling is much easier because you know who you're looking for and you know what to say to them. So Ask yourselves, you want more clients, but do you just want more clients? Or do you want to do the right work for the right clients? If you're looking for investors, do you just want that money from an investor who, for example, is just looking to get a good return on their investment? Or do you want investors who are aligned with your mission and your values? So here's a pitfall. Has anyone had a deal where it all looked good in the beginning, but then things fell apart because you didn't see eye to eye? The reason behind many failures is defining your target market too broadly, trying to be all things to all people. That is a major issue that I work with my clients on, to refine and define that target market. So another story, I recently worked with an insurance broker, and he was frustrated with the clients that he was getting. Clients would call him and ask him things like, hey, we just got a new vacation home, can you quote on a homeowner's policy? Well, that sounds good, and it's pretty standard, but it's not the way my client likes to work. So after we did the brand vision and doing a deep dive into his values, we realized he's frustrated by working piecemeal. He likes to work holistically, and he likes to work analytically. He likes to look at a client's entire risk profile and insurance needs. So in doing this work, we identified the archetype of the analyst, and we realized that his old marketing strategy of going directly to the end consumer wasn't working. He was getting too many clients who didn't fit. So he wanted to focus on high net worth clients who had complex risk situations like multiple properties and staff and board seats and lots of liabilities. And we decided to focus his marketing not on clients, but on key referral sources like trusted advisors to these clients, especially financial professionals. So now on my client's website, the language is very precise. Is your client's insurance as carefully selected as their investments? And then we have a chart that educates advisors about hidden risks. So this message now is very targeted. It's the opposite of trying to be all things to all people, and it is an important part of my client strategy to get the right kind of clients. So when you think about your target market, there's two ways to segment it. The first is demographic. So that's all the things that are very tangible. So like if you're in a B2B environment, type of company, size of company, location, position of decision makers, etc. But more relevant to what we're talking about today is psychographic segmentation. Psychographics include, what do your customers value? What do they believe? What is their worldview? What do they care about? What might they want to feel? Right? These questions are so much more relevant when you are developing a fearless brand. So the fourth question is, what do they want? So in a way, selling is very simple. You talk to the right people, they need or want something you have, then you make a promise, you tell them that you're going to give them what they want, they say yes, you got a sale. So in that little equation, one of the key challenges, of course, is to figure out what they really want. So sometimes clients really do just want a commodity solution, and in those situations, it's hard to differentiate. It's hard to find a reason that that customer should choose you other than offering a lower price or a closer location or something really straightforward like that. But most of the time, for high-value products and services, there are ways to add value that is differentiated. It is not always so easy to identify what that differentiator is, however. So an essential part of the branding process is to talk with customers in an open-ended way to find out what they want and need. So when I do a brand vision, I always conduct in-depth interviews with external stakeholders, especially my clients' clients. I don't do surveys. I don't do SurveyMonkey. I don't do anything where I can't dance and have that real conversation, where I seek to understand. I'm not trying to sell these people anything. My agenda is to dig into what clients really want and how they make decisions. So the conversations always lead to what I call the driving insight. I get a piece of gold that informs the brand strategy. So here's one simple example. My client is Town & Country Resources. They are a high-end domestic staffing agency for high-end home professionals like nannies, housekeepers, personal assistants, estate managers. So I was doing interviews, and one client said something to me that has stuck for a really long time. She said, I don't need a million choices. I just need the one. I'm paying you guys to find me the one. And that has really become their brand strategy, and in fact, it's translated into a tagline. So we use the language, we're dedicated to finding you the one. And we're actually doing a new website right now, and we're shortening it even further just to finding you the one. So this process of talking to the end users almost always solves the mystery. There are always dots that need to be connected. What I find is when I do branding work with clients, they know a lot about their value. They're smart. They know a lot about their brand. They know a lot about their customers, but they don't know everything. And then when you go outside and you start talking to clients and prospects and outside colleagues, it's like taking your blinders off. You get to see the whole picture. And that new perspective gives you the information that you need to connect the dots and come up with a brand strategy that's more differentiated. So the last question is, what do they get? So that's how that question is how you deliver your brand promise. So one way to think about a brand is basically that it is a series of promises that you make and then deliver. So by answering the question, what do they get, you have an opportunity to bring this whole process full circle and to see if it's really working, to see if it's really holding together. So here's the way it works. Whatever the answer to your first question is, who are you, that should drive the answer to the last question. It should be the same. So for Apple, it's creativity. For Tiffany, love. For my business, it's fearlessness. Of course, that emotional benefit is not the only thing that the customer wants or gets. They need that brand strategy, or they need that computer. So that's why we also talk about the functional differentiation. But it should all work together. So in the case of fearless branding, fearless means having the courage to be more differentiated, to put your stake in the ground, to not be all things to all people. It takes fearlessness to make those tough decisions that you need to make to differentiate your business. So my clients may not know that they're looking for fearlessness when they're looking for someone to help them with their brand or their marketing. But as I lay out my case for how to be more fearless in your brand, there will be some clients that really resonate with my message because I'm into something that's already there for them. And those are the questions, those are the clients I want to focus on. So, final thought. I like to think of fearless brands as having a gift to give. If you're in business to add value in the lives of your clients and customers, it changes the paradigm of marketing and selling. When you're thinking about your brand as giving a gift rather than you're trying to sell something, you're trying to take that money away from them. And of course, a gift isn't just a piece of jewelry from Tiffany or a bottle of scotch. So even in a B2B context, even in what might seem like a commoditized category, like insurance, you can still define your unique value and connect it to the people who will appreciate it most. So we started our conversation by asking, what makes sales and marketing work? And I've given you a way to answer that question by building a fearless brand. So when you can convincingly articulate your fearless brand idea, and then you have distinctive answers to those 5 simple questions, you're well on your way to driving the results that you're looking for. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd like to hand it back over to Kim, and we can open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was excellent. Lots of good takeaways. Some I'll recap in a few minutes, but we've got a couple of questions thus far. The first is, we are pitching soon. I assume that's pitching for an investment soon, and have been using an old logo. Hadn't really considered anything deeper. How long does it take to go through this fearless branding process?
The short answer is it usually takes about 2 months. If I'm working with, there's 2 types of clients that I typically have. One is where there's a management team, and they also already have existing clients, and we want to make sure we have all of our conversations and really think through it very carefully. Another way is if there's, let's say, one founder or one CEO, that person is the decision maker, they may be pre-revenue, then you can do it much faster. But you definitely want to allow time for all of the key stakeholders as well as external stakeholders to provide input, synthesize that, really consider what your options are, and then come up with a good solution. So I often find it takes about 2 months. It could be accelerated, but you also don't want to rush it because you want to do it right. You want to do it right once, And then I call this foundational work because it is designed to last for a long time. It's not like a campaign that you redo. So you want to make sure you give it enough time to think it through.
Super. Does the next question is, does this work for any company? What about startups?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a difference. One of the things that I've learned from working with startups and working with new businesses is there's only so much you can know. So you may, a lot of my clients are very established. They've been doing what they've been doing for 20 years or something like that, and they're not likely to evolve or change too much. However, a startup, if you don't have experience with your customers yet, you very well may want to change. And so what I would say is that you want to maybe keep more options open, and you want to start to set your direction based on what you know and what you believe. But if you are a pure startup, you also want to give yourself some flexibility to see what happens when you really go out to the market.
Okay, and we'll give you one more question. You talked a little bit about the right clients. The question is, how do I know if my prospective clients are the right ones?
Yeah. So, well, let me give you a contrast. Is that what I often find when I work with clients is that they will say, like my insurance example, right, where somebody is coming and saying, I want you to do this thing, and then you realize that's not the right way to work. So when you think about who might be the right client based on a prospect, there's going to be criteria both about the way that you work and what they need, so that you can really define those in advance and look for the fit. So for just one more quick example, sometimes if I meet a client and they say, what we really need to do is we just need to get the word out, but they're not willing to do the challenging and rigorous work of really answering these questions that are simple questions, but it's hard work to think it through and to make those decisions about how you want to define your brand. If they're not willing to do that, they then become not the right client for me. So what I find is that there's always analogous situations, and you want to really look about, I call it non-negotiables. It's like, this is the way we work. If the clients are not willing to do it that way, they're really not our right clients.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Robert. That is all the time we have today for questions. As a reminder, if you did not get your question answered, please feel free to reach out to Robert after this event. I always like to close the afternoon with basically some of my takeaways. Here's what resonated for me. Fearless brands all have three things in common. They are built on a foundation of a single idea. They stand for just one thing, delivering a meaningful experience. It's inspirational. It's not just about the products and services. The second thing is they focus on a clearly defined market. We're not all things to all people, and call that down. And third, they are unmistakable. We can't confuse the brands for any other brand. So three common elements for fearless brands. The second thing is that there are three levels of differentiation. I think you call this the fearless brand idea, right? The first is they are emotional. They're meaningful ideas. They're functional. They do something different than our competitors, and they relate back to the emotional idea. And finally, the aesthetics are different. The look, feel, and sound are different. The language, images are clear and unmistakable in identifying a unique fearless brand. As a special offer for our participants today, if Robert is offering to speak with our listeners, please send Robert an email at robert@fearlessbranding.com. That's robert@fearlessbranding.com. He'll get back to you with a couple of questions to understand your objectives and set up a time for a 30-minute exploratory call. So it's a great offer. Thank you so much, Robert, for that. As is our practice, we would like your feedback. We will be sending you the post-webinar link of today's session so you may review it at your leisure. We really appreciate your getting the survey back to us so that we can consistently improve our presentations. Coming up, our next three events. Next month, June 23rd, Why State Crowdfunding Laws Still Matter, featuring moi. We're going to really be diving into Title III, which is the which is the national crowdfunding laws versus the intrastate or the state. There are now 30 states that have passed or enacted crowdfunding legislation. We'll be talking a little bit of what are the differences and why you might choose one over the other. Followed in July, let's bend the curve with the one-page business plan featuring Allison Tabor, the founder of Copia Communication. Then in August, storytelling, tips to help you be more persuasive with Christy Royce. So please sign up for all of these complimentary webinars. And as I had mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, we really could use your help. For all of you business owners out there trying to find capital, we are asking for your support on helping to get California Assembly Bill 2178, which is equity crowdfunding in California. We will be sending you a link to just add your name to this petition. The Assembly is going to be looking at that bill tomorrow, so if we can get as many names as possible to try to get this through so we can create more opportunities for capital access for all of you out there, it would benefit everyone. As a reminder, if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur seeking to raise capital, I invite you to give us a call at 844-871-3400 or contact us via email at info@breakawayfunding.com. We look forward to sharing with you how the community capital model can work for you. Once again, I'd like to thank our presenter this morning, Robert Friedman of Fearless Branding, on this riveting and very practical and informative presentation on why branding makes a difference. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.